want to make sure everybody's okay here. Okay. I assume you still remember me. I'm Caroline Smith, and I got something very, very different to tell you about. Chris Fran came home from a shorter than normal business trip and discovered that his guns were missing. While he was gone on that shorter than normal business trip, his wife, Kim Fran, was left home with her cravings. While he was gone on that trip, Kimberly Fran did a lot of drugs. And at the end of the time that Chris was gone, she wanted more, and she had no money. And the guns ended up being the means that she used to get more drugs. They were not stolen from the Fran's residence. They were taken with Kim's knowledge. They were taken with Kim's permission. And they were taken by Ishmael Garcia with Kim's consent. As Chris Fran was talking to the police, Ishmael Garcia was reaching out to sell the guns. And one of the people he reached out to was Adam. And Adam reached out to others to help Ish. Adam tried to help Ish sell the guns. That's what he's called. Ishmael Garcia goes by Ish. Adam tried to help him, but he did not steal those guns. Ish did. Adam reached out to buyers for Ish, but he did not possess the guns. Adam tried to connect people interested in the guns with Ishmael, but he did not control those guns. Ishmael Garcia held on to those guns until the moment that he sold them to someone else. Unfortunately, the police didn't pay a lot of attention to those missing guns back in 2019. They didn't really pay any attention, or much attention, to those missing guns until 2022, when Adam was arrested and when they wanted to get Adam for more. People will give a lot of statements here in this courtroom. And you're going to learn that those statements changed over time from 2019, when the original investigation into the guns happened, to 2022, when the police wanted Adam for the guns. People's statements changed dramatically in some cases and a little bit in others, but they substantially changed what happened in 2019 when Ishmael Garcia took the guns. On September 29 is when Chris left for his trip. It was a business trip, a work trip, but he didn't come back on October 4th. He came back on October 2nd, and he discovered that his guns were missing. And what he will tell you is, before he went on his trip on September 29, he looked under the bed and he checked, and both of his guns were there. And he went to the drawer and he checked, and both of the pistols were there, the .380 and the .45. And he'll tell you that when he came back on the 2nd, he checked under the bed and his guns were missing. And he checked in the drawer and the .380 was missing, but the .45 was still there. So he's trying to figure out throughout October 2nd what's going on. He confronts his wife. I don't know. She's got nothing to say. He looks around, tries to figure things out, cannot, calls the police on October 3rd. And the police arrive, and Chris tells the police that he was gone those days, that he checked before he left. He knew the guns were there. He checked when he came back, and 3 of the guns are missing and 1 remains. And that was very strange to him. So he told him that he talked to his wife, Kim, and Kim said she knew nothing, must have been stolen. And he also had a list of other things that after he noticed his guns were missing, he went around the house more. And he found other things missing. His watch, that he thought was about $800 watch. A wedding ring, silver wedding ring, that he thought was about $1,000. Speakers, and maybe some other stuff, but that was what he could list for the police, along with the .380, the Mossberg shotgun, and the AR-15 assault rifle. And he said that he confronted Kim, and at first she said she didn't know the guns were missing. She hadn't noticed it. And then she said she hadn't left home in the entire 3 days that he was gone. It must have been stolen. And Chris said he didn't see any sign of forced entry. He didn't see any signs of things moved around as if somebody is looking for valuables. And he didn't know. And Kim was just like, must have been stolen. She did not tell Chris that she had pawned the wedding ring, $1,000 wedding ring that she pawned in August for $50 and hadn't been able to get back from the pawn shop in those 2 months. She hadn't told him that she had gotten rid of his watch. She didn't tell him any of that. And when he confronted her with that list of items, must have been stolen. So then Chris called the police on the third, and he told the police all of his checking, and he said, and another weird thing is, the dog would not let somebody in here. The dog would be barking if somebody came into my house and stole items. The dog barks when people move around in the house. The dog made everything very suspicious. So Officer Brunelli spoke to Kim. She said, they must have been stolen. He confronted her with the dog and the condition of the house that Chris had told him that. She said she wasn't gone the whole time. She didn't know what happened. But as the officer confronted her more and more on the things that didn't quite add up, she said, well, she went to sleep on the couch with her 2-year-old daughter around 10. And then she woke up around 11 to take the dog out for nightly pee. And then went back to bed, and maybe she left the door unlocked. She must have left the door unlocked because when she woke up in the morning, the door was wide open. So that was her explanation. Must have been stolen. But she did not have an explanation for the officer about why the .45 is in the drawer and the .380 is gone. She didn't have an explanation, or didn't give one. There was an explanation. She didn't explain, actually all those things weren't really missing. I pawned some. I got rid of some. She didn't explain that. She was protecting herself with the police. And she couldn't explain how the dog didn't go crazy if somebody came in after she went to bed. So around the same time that the police are called and responding to this, Ishmael Garcia is trying to sell his guns, or the guns that he got. And he reached out to different people, and one of the people he reached out to was Adam, and Adam was not interested in buying the guns, but he knew people that might be. And so Adam reached out to people for Ish, and it was not a good thing to do. It was not the right thing to do, but that's what Adam did. But Ish had control of the guns, so one of the people that Adam was reaching out to was Mark Reed, and wanted to sell the guns, connect the two, but he said he acted as if these were my guns, and we're in a hurry. We need to move them fast. Let's go, Mark, come on. Mark doesn't move fast enough. Adam would like to have Mark, his friend Mark, have the gun, but Ishmael had sold it to somebody else by the time Mark and he were working things out for a price. Ishmael sold it to someone else. We'll address each bit of those text messages that you saw, because there was more to the text messages. Now, Ish also sold the AR-15, and that was sold before the communication between Adam and Mark was even done. That was gone pretty quickly. And after the report on October 3rd, Kim went to her friend Mike Sullivan's house. It's a place where she hung out. And she told Mike Sullivan that Ish and Manny had stolen the guns. And Mike went to Ish to talk to him about that and came back and was just shaking his head at Kim. And Kim started accusing other people of stealing her guns. One of the other people at Mike's was Adam. She accused him as well. And at some point she said, I got a video. That was laughed at. If there was a video, somebody would have been arrested. There was no video, and it was very clear at the time. But Kim couldn't own up to what she had done, because these people were somewhat friends of Chris too. So, the police go back to Chris. Officer Brunelli wants this investigation to go on, but there's nowhere to go as far as what he has. What he didn't know was that on October 22nd, 2 weeks after the guns were reported stolen, the AR-15 assault rifle was found. But it was never connected to Chris's guns, so this investigation into Chris's guns didn't know it had been found. It was off the street. But as far as the Manchester Police Department knew, it was still on the street. But in November of 2019, the police decided to close the case. They couldn't go any farther based on what Chris and Kim had told them. December 19, 2019, Kim Fran is arrested for drugs. And she doesn't want to go to jail, and she wants to go home, and she wants to turn things around, and she promises to turn things around. And the officer there asks about the guns. And she's got another story here. She says, oh, and she still, in that story, did not talk about Ish. She then gave a story that she moved the guns behind the couch to be close to her daughter. Chris and Kim had a 2-year-old daughter in the house as well. And in this story, she says, well, Adam came over that night and she fell asleep. And in this story, she woke up in the morning and Adam was still there. And so as she was leaving, she said in this story that she was going to work. And as she was leaving, she said, lock up when you leave, Adam. That was her second story. That wasn't true either. She didn't mention Ishmael Garcia. She didn't mention that she knew what happened to the guns. And then Mike Sullivan was arrested. He was arrested in January of 2020. And Mike Sullivan didn't want to go to jail. And Mike Sullivan did not want to have his kids taken away from him. And he will tell you he was threatened with that, with DCYF taking his kids. And he was promising, I'll do rehab, I'll give you whatever you want. And so they sat Mike Sullivan down to see what Mike knew about things that were going on in the neighborhood, that maybe if he could give them something important, they might work with him. And so Mike sat down with them and he told them everything he knew about, I can't say that. He told them about many different people in the area and things that they did wrong. And he said, Ish and Manny, that gun's from the house. When they followed up, what are you talking about? He said Chris and Kim, I think he said Fran, they took the guns from the house. And he mentions Adam too. Pulls Adam in, give him as much as he can. And the police say, what guns? And he says the .380 or pistol, maybe, shotgun, and an AR-15. This is in January of 2020, where he identifies the people who used to own the gun, identifies Ish and Manny as people who took the guns, and pulls in Adam as well. And when they say, ask him, did you see a picture of the guns? He says, no, I held on to them. I held them. They did not follow up with the Franz after that. They did not reopen the gun case after that. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, they don't know that the AR-15 is safely in an evidence locker somewhere. As far as they know, there's still an assault rifle around Manchester missing. So then Adam is arrested on unrelated charges, and he's in jail. And the police reopened the investigation. There was a connection to Adam there, and they were going to make that connection. They were going to make it stick. Kim had said, Adam, we're going to get Adam for the guns. On February 6th, they learned that the .380 was also recovered much earlier, back in March of 2021. The .380 was the pistol. So that was also safely off the streets, but they didn't know it until they ran another NCIC check and discovered that. On February 12th, they talked to Kim again, and this time Kim's story was that on the night before Chris got home, Adam came over hoping to get high with her. She was tired and he was too, so they went to sleep. And she said she woke up around 9 or 10 in the morning and the door was wide open and there was a crack pipe on the counter. And she said some of the guns were in the bedroom and some of the guns were under the couch. Ish Garcia's name came up during that interview, and she said she was somewhat familiar with him. She didn't say that Ish was her dealer, but she did say, well, maybe Adam and Ish could have sold the guns, but she was keeping Ishmael as far away from her story as she could, given that she had to answer the questions. On February 14, the police learned about the Stag AR-15, that it had been recovered 2 weeks after, give or take, 2 weeks after the guns had been taken from the Franz house. There was a switch on a number, on a serial number. They caught that, ran it through NCI again, and they had the gun. And it had been safely off the streets for a long time. On March 1st, the police went to Mark Reed. And Mark Reed said, yeah, he had wanted to buy the gun. Still had the Facebook messages. You can look at them. And didn't work out. It got sold before he could buy the gun. Then on March 11, they talked to Kayla. This is Adam's estranged wife. She was incarcerated at the time, too. And before the police talked to her, she had talked to her attorney about what they wanted to talk to her about. She already knew. She'd also talked to another friend, Terry Hebert, who knew that Adam, the investigation in the guns was going on. So she did not protect Adam. She protected herself. She said, yeah, Adam went over to Kim's. I remember the guns being stolen. Adam went over to Kim's, and when he came back, he said the door was wide open and Kim was asleep. And she also mentioned Ish and Manny. And she said, well, they were accusing each other of doing that. I remember, but I don't really know anything. I didn't see anything. I don't know anything. She was protecting herself, but she was willing to say, yeah, go for Adam. Adam was over at Kim's that night. And on March 21, after that. Oh, and she also recalled that Adam was gone for about 20 minutes when he went to Kim's. Not overnight. On March 21, Kim Fran testified before a grand jury. She started to give us similar events, but at this time, instead of being somewhat familiar with Ish Garcia, she had to admit they hung out, they did drugs together, and if she needed drugs, he would come by and sell her crack. He was her drug dealer. And when she was asked at that grand jury, did Ishmael Garcia ever hold, use, or fire any of Chris's guns? And she said, not that I saw. No. More questions on that. And she said, well, I like the .45 and I would take that with me. So if he ever held it, it was when I had it with me. He could have held one of the guns then, my .45. She said that while she was sober, under oath. She's recently admitted that she used to let Ishmael Garcia take her car and his .380 while Chris was out of town. On March 30 or 31, no, there is no 30. Anyway, the end of March, Mike Sullivan is arrested. That story that he had talked to the police about in January of 2020, that was supposed to take care of the charge, but Mike didn't do what he was supposed to do, and he fled the jurisdiction, or at least fled the court, would not show up in court. And he will tell you that he left because he was scared, because one of the people that he gave information on had been arrested, and he was afraid that that person would read through and discover he had given information, and he was scared, so he left. But because he left that jurisdiction, those cases stayed. And so when he was arrested, he wanted to give information so that he could get that deal back, so that this case could go away. And so he knew that the police wanted to talk about Adam, knew Adam had been arrested, and so he gave a different story from what he said in January of 2020. And he kind of implicated Ish and he implicated Adam, but he definitely had Adam selling a shotgun. And he embellished that story a bit about the shotgun. And so the police say, great. And he describes how he knows that Adam sold this shotgun, because he didn't touch him or anything. But he was with Adam when Adam drove to this place where he did an exchange with somebody else. And yeah, I could identify who that person was. I don't know right now, but if you showed me a photo, I would know. And yeah, I know where that place was. Yeah, I know where that place is. So the police take him up on it. All right, let's go. Let's find that place. And they take Sullivan on a ride around. No result. Nope. You can't figure it out. They don't bother with the photo lineup with Mike Sullivan. So, Mike appeared for another story, or another statement after that. This statement was under oath, and his story changed again. And when he was caught in March into April, he was kind of in a bad way. He was a little bit better off mentally, off drugs, for that other statement. And he knew that the police wanted Adam, but he couldn't remember exactly what he had told them before. So he probably got a little bit closer to the truth when he was talking about Ishmael Garcia then. But he couldn't remember all that he said, so it became a different statement again. On April 1st, Adam was charged with stealing or receiving 2 of the 3 guns that went missing at the same time. No one was charged with the third. On June 3rd, Kayla went to the grand jury as well, but she wasn't asked about the guns by the prosecutors at that grand jury. She wasn't asked about that case. And after she had given her statement to the police that she knew was coming, that she volunteered to do after talking to her attorney, she was charged with receiving guns. The two guns that Adam Montgomery was charged with, Kayla was charged with, and she will tell you, and has always said, she never held, never controlled, never managed, never disposed of those guns. And the police didn't have, well, she was saying when she gave her story, no, none of this was. And throughout this time, she will tell you, I never controlled, held, owned, possessed, managed, disposed, nothing with those guns. I was in the house and all I wanted to do was get high. But she was charged on June 3rd. And after she was charged, or knew she was, June 3rd? I think I have that wrong, but I'll figure it out later. We'll get it as the facts are presented at trial. But on June 3rd, after she had been charged with that, she talked to the police and gave them a different story, giving them more of Adam. They want Adam, they get Adam. Other people have implicated Adam since. Kevin LaBelle bought the gun, bought the shotgun. You're going to hear how his story changed too, very much so, from when the police first spoke to him in 2022. And you can see why the state wouldn't want to just rely on these witnesses who keep changing their stories. So the police do send the AR-15, the Stag AR-15. They do send it to lab for DNA testing and for fingerprint testing. Let's get science to see if it can back this up. You won't hear anything about DNA or fingerprints connecting Adam to that AR-15. But there were results on the fingerprints for sure. Nothing to connect Adam. People can say after the fact what they want for their own reasons. But real evidence in this case is what was going on in 2019 when there wasn't this focus specifically to get Adam. And that connection to Adam was not made, except shortly after by Mike Sullivan when he talked about Ishmael and Manny taking the guns, and Adam there, a part of it. Adam's part was to help Ish either connect him with buyers or have somebody to buy the gun for Ish. At no time did Adam possess the gun. Ishmael held on to the guns until he sold them. At no time did Adam control the guns. Ishmael decided who would buy the guns. At no time did Adam manage the guns, and he did not dispose of the guns. Those were Ishmael's actions, and Adam did a very bad thing by contributing to it to the extent that he did. But he didn't steal the guns, he didn't possess them, he didn't control them, and he's not guilty of what he's charged with here. Thank you.